Yep, I think I've got it. Hey folks, welcome back to the Terradome. So, obviously I've got a lot of time on my hands being trapped on this ice planet. And with the release of 65 coming out in a few months, it got me thinking about, like, scary dinosaurs in movies. And I wanted to make a list of what I consider to be the top 10 scariest dinosaurs ever put to screen. Obviously 65 might change that when it comes out, but before it does, this is the current list. So I'm just going to go through it, talk briefly about each one, and let me know what you think in the comments down below. So at number 10 I have Sharptooth. Now I know this is an animated movie, but there's some reasons why this is on my list as one of the scariest dinosaurs. It's because it's the way they frame this T-Rex. What makes Sharptooth unique and scary for little kids, and how it impacted me when I was little, was the fact that all the other dinosaurs speak, yet Sharptooth was the only one that didn't talk as far as I remember. And having this bloodthirsty T-Rex that doesn't talk or negotiate with the other dinosaurs like the herbivores do in the rest of the movie made it really, like, intimidating. And it's like an unstoppable freight train of a dinosaur just chasing down these cute cuddy little characters and just frankly just trying to eat them. And I really love the way they draw this dinosaur with its teeth really big and its eyes glowing red. And one of the most standout moments for me is the scene when the baby Triceratops Sarah falls down into the cave and the Tyrannosaurus Rex is knocked unconscious in the bottom of this sort of ravine, and there's this tension filmed moment where she's a brave character, she's trying to be tough, and so she wants to, like, go and headbutt this T-Rex that she thinks is dead, and then as she's running towards it, its eye opens and she ends up skidding right up close to the eye before getting out of there. And even when I was really little, I thought that was really tense, and I was like, this is scary because that T-Rex is scary. So number 10 is Sharptooth. I don't count the sequels as anything in this list. This is just talking about the original Land Before Time, because I know they have T-Rexes talk in the later sequels. I've never watched them, but I know of that. But yeah, in the original, the Land Before Time, Sharptooth is number 10. Number 9, we have Fantasia from 1940 with the chapter The Rite of Spring in that movie, which tells the origins of Earth, goes through the dinosaur period and to their eventual extinction. And there is a section in there where these group of herbivores are attacked by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Obviously they got all the species wrong because the T-Rex attacks and kills the Stegosaurus. But I'm considering this T-Rex to be one of the scariest dinosaurs, and it's mainly down to the music of The Rite of Spring and the way Disney animated this T-Rex in particular. It's cut from the same cloth, I think, as Sharptooth, but I consider it slightly scarier because this scene, it is so moody and puts you in the shoes of these herbivores that are seeing this carnivore stand on the hill, and the music's got those big trombones, I believe they are, go boom, 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 like as it's coming in and attacking the dinosaurs. And so when I was little, I watched that and I was really on edge. And they've given the T-Rex like these giant fangs, and the way they animate it, it just is so menacing to watch that. Yeah, I had to put it on this list because it's always one of those ones that sticks in my mind. Same with Sharptooth, and even though they're animated, I think that they deserve to be given the credit of some of the most fearful dinosaurs ever put to screen. Number 8, we have the Redosaurus from The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Now, the reason this one is on the list, even though it's a fictionalized dinosaur, is because whenever it's on screen, you feel its presence. And I really, really like its build-up to being shown on screen. I think when it's revealed in the snow, there's this like low-down shot of it looking above this hillside, and it's just terrifying. And so much so, I think that shot was kind of re-emulated in 1954's Godzilla for when Godzilla comes over the hill, because it's such an impactful moment when you see this dinosaur for the first time. And then there's a scene where it attacks a lighthouse and it attacks a boat, and each time it does that, the film presents this dinosaur as a force to be reckoned with. And whenever it's in the city and when it goes to to Coney Island and attacks the funfair there. It puts you on edge. It's just this relentless machine of a dinosaur that is kind of, I guess, lost and doesn't quite know what's going on. And it's also an irradiated dinosaur, so it's it's dangerous to humans even if you go near it. So this creature deserves a spot on the list, and because it inspired so much as well after it. Whenever I watch this film, even as an adult, whenever that dinosaur comes over that hill and you see the Irredosaurus look around, I do get that childish fear comes back up in me, and I think that is one of the scariest movie monsters dinosaurs put to screen. Number 7, we have the Indominus Rex. Now, yes, this dinosaur, again, is not a real dinosaur. It's a hybrid of dinosaurs, but in terms of movies, it is considered a dinosaur. And as I mentioned with the Irredosaurus being like this force to be reckoned with, the Indominus Rex is just unstoppable. I think what makes this dinosaur's on-screen presence scary is that you never know what it's going to do next, and it's got this intelligence to it, because it's essentially a giant velociraptor. And if you know anything about the Jurassic Park velociraptors, they are considered the most intelligent dinosaur in the Jurassic Park canon, and so to have one the size of a T-Rex is just a very terrifying thought to even contemplate. And there's this scene where it attacks a gyrosphere, and it hits my inner fears of being swallowed alive, because it starts to like grab its jaws around the gyrosphere, and it starts to like unlock its jaw and like a snake eating a giant egg. And even though it doesn't do it in the movie, it just adds that fear of like, God, imagine if that thing then swallowed that gyrosphere like a giant egg and you're trapped inside it. It's just, the claustrophobia goes through the roof. So, and the fact that this dinosaur, you know, is so clever, that's what gives it an edge, I think, over some of the other dinosaurs on this list, is that its size and its intelligence is what makes it scary. And yeah, so the fact that humans messed with its genetics to begin with to create it just adds that extra level of fear, because it's the unknown, which is scary. Number 6 is Gwangi, from the Valley of Gwangi. Yep, I had to put this dinosaur on the list because this is one of the best dinosaurs ever put to screen, in my opinion. And the reason it's on the list is because it's a juxtaposition, in my opinion, to King Kong. It emulates the same kind of story as King Kong. You know, this prehistoric beast is found in a lost world and then brought back to human civilization. However, different from King Kong, where that giant ape was a sympathetic character. He was taken away from his home. It's all the human's fault. He climbs to the top of a building and is gunned down mercilessly, and and you feel sympathy for him. It's like, oh, that wasn't Kong's fault, and it's just you know, a representation of man's greed getting the better of him and all that jazz. Whereas in Gwangi, this Allosaurus is, you want to see it die, because this Allosaurus is on a tirade of destruction, and I always get this sense that it's not the dinosaur shouldn't have any sympathy, even though it was taken away from its home. They have this scene where he's like being dragged in this cage, and some of the visuals you're like, oh no, that's not good. And when it's put on show at the circus before it attacks the elephant, but when it comes out of the cage, like I just said, it attacks an elephant, which is a more sympathetic creature in terms of its nature, compared to a bloodthirsty Allosaurus. And then it just goes on this absolute monstrous rampage through this city, and it ends up in this giant cathedral. And there's this, I've always had, whenever I watch this film, I always have this sense during that scene that there's this sort of symbolic narrative at play of a demon has entered a place of God, a place of worship. And that's why Gwangi had to enter this list, in my opinion, because it's got this demonic air to it that I really, really like, especially with the visuals of it running around this cathedral as it burns down in all hellfire. So Gwangi, if you haven't seen that movie, I've spoiled it, but you definitely need to check it out. Because it's one of the best dinosaur movies ever, and Gwangi is one of the most terrifying dinosaurs ever put to screen. Number 5, we have the Vastinosaurus Rex from King Kong 2005. Now, this dinosaur, albeit not a real dinosaur again, but had to make the list because of, in my opinion, one particular scene that really got to me, which I'll get onto in a minute. The V-Rexes, as they're known in Peter Jackson's King Kong, are meant to be dinosaurs that are evolved from millions of years ago. You know, they didn't die out on Skull Island, so when we get to 1933, when the movie is set, you know, this is how the dinosaurs have evolved over those extra 65 million years after the extinction of all the other dinosaurs. And so the T-Rex essentially has evolved even further into these absolutely giant gargantuan theropods. But yeah, the one scene that made it so these dinosaurs had to make the list is this moment where Ann Darrow is in a log and this centipede is like clawing her face, and she climbs out of the log, turns around, and there's this dinosaur looking at her, and it's the V-Rex, and it gives chase. But then she falls down this hill and lands on this other log, if I remember correctly. And there's this moment where there's no music, you're just hearing ambient sounds of the jungle. It's very quiet, and she's trying to, you know, calmly sneak away, and the camera just slowly pans round to reveal that there is another V-Rex just leaning up against this log. Its horrible teeth just right there on screen. That's all you can see, is just the teeth and these tiny little beady eyes watching her, and it's slowly opening her mouth and then tries to attack her. And I remember when I watched that in the cinema for the first time, I was so scared. I was like, I knew Ann Darrow wasn't going to die because I knew the story of King Kong, but that really put me on edge. I was like, that thing looks absolutely monstrous and horrible, and it just hit all those sort of reptilian fears that humans have because of like crocodiles and snakes and other lizards like that we had to compete with during our evolutionary history. I saw these like big gnashing teeth right up in the screen, and the CGI was amazing, and I was sweating. I was like, that is terrifying. So number 5, the V-Rex from King Kong 2005, and I can see why, you know, later on movies like Jurassic World with the Indominus Rex, you know, they kind of base the teeth of that dinosaur, the I-Rex, on kind of like how the teeth are mangled on the V-Rexes, and apparently they're doing the same sort of thing in 65. You know, the gnarly ununiformed teeth, there's something there, something primal in that is just absolutely scary. So yeah, love it. The Endoraptor, this creature right here, is what I consider to be the pinnacle of villainous dinosaurs ever put to screen, because it's a myriad of different qualities that make it so. So obviously the backstory of this hybrid dinosaur is it's a mixture of the Indominus Rex, which was number 7 on our list, and Velociraptors from Jurassic Park, which might be on the list later on. And the combination of those, and the fact that it was grown in a sort of makeshift lab in the bottom of this huge mansion in California, and the fact that it's a prototype, means that it's unpredictable. It's got all the qualities of the Indominus Rex, except for like the camouflaging, but it's smaller, so it can hunt you in smaller places, whereas the Indominus Rex is, you know, quite big. So like, let's say you go into like a bunker or something, the Indominus Rex isn't going to be able to get you, but the Endoraptor might, because it can get through smaller passages. It's insanely smart. But at the same time, it's also, as I said, unpredictable, because it's a prototype, it's not quite all there. So it's malicious and it's sinister, and it has this vendetta against humans. You can see this thing thinking on screen, and I think the way they executed it in the movie Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom was just, in my opinion, pitch perfect. Except for one thing I wish they did add in the movie, which would have made it even more scary, is in the current film, there's a scene where the character Wheatley climbs into the cage with it when he thinks he's tranquilized it or killed it, and he wants to remove one of the teeth for his necklace collection, and the thing opens its eyes and moves its tail, and Wheatley turns around, and the animal kind of opens its eyes, and the muscles in its face move to almost give like a smirk, like it's almost like a Looney Tunes character, like going, I'm gonna get you. But there's a deleted scene from earlier on in the film where the dinosaur was going to be being tasered by some people who are like looking after it, like they're being cruel to it, and they're laughing while they're doing it, and then the Endoraptor kind of imitates the smile, and they're like freaked out. I wish that scene had stayed in, because it would have given more sinister context to the kind of the smirk that it gives in the movie, whereas in the final film it's kind of like just a a reflection of our emotions on its face, because it's like muscles moving in a certain way that it looks like a smile. It's kind of like how, like, people put pictures of their dogs up and they're like, look, they're smiling, and it's like, it looks like they are, but they're not really. Or like a crocodile or a lizard looks like they're smiling, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think this dinosaur is the pinnacle of villainous dinosaurs in terms of its intent to be villainous, because it definitely has that, so it had to make the list. Well, I said they might be on the list. They are actually next. The Jurassic Park Velociraptors. So the original Velociraptors from the first Jurassic Park movie are absolutely terrifying, and for a number of reasons. It's because of the narrative around them, that they represent the chaotic nature of what John Hammond and his team are doing. They are the beast unleashed, essentially, and not just on a dinosaur size level like the T-Rex. The T-Rex bursts out of his cage and causes all this rampage, but the Velociraptors, they've cloned them, and not only have they cloned them, and they're alive and successfully alive, they're breeding on their own, which is as Wu mentions in the original Jurassic Park book, is a great feat in itself for him, because it proves that his science has worked so well. And two, their intelligence. They are sort of man's equal from 66 million years ago, or however long. And they have been resurrected, and it's not only that they've been resurrected in terms of their physical body and the fact that they're alive, as I mentioned, but it's also their intelligence has come back, and that's what's going to start testing humankind as they go forward. And we see that through the movies as it goes on, and that's what ends up with the Endoraptor, as we see over here, being sort of like the final point of that. And also, I think it's the atmosphere and the way Spielberg shoots these Jurassic Park Velociraptors. And the music, obviously, by John Williams, just adds this real level of tension to these creatures whenever they're on screen. They're set up at the beginning, and you only see an eye looking at a human eye, as they're killing someone. They don't reveal the Velociraptors for a lot of the movie, and it's only until really Ellie's in the shed trying to put the power back on, and this massive head of a Velociraptor bursts through the pipes and tries to attack her in this kind of jump scare moment, and you see the remains of the character Arnold that fall on her and all that jazz, that just cements that these creatures are not to be messed with. There is a level of sympathy to them if you count all the movies, and how they play out with the Velociraptors as characters, that they're being mistreated. So they, as soon as they get out of their cage, they already have this kind of thing against humans, because they're intelligent enough to know that humans equal bad for them. Like with the Endoraptor, and as I mentioned before, its intelligence, when the Velociraptors climb out of their cage after the power is deliberately turned off and on again by the humans, they seize their opportunity to go exploring, and it doesn't take them 5 seconds to learn how to open a door, just to turn the handle and open it, which just really cements how terrifying these creatures are as an antagonist for the humans. They're not as I wouldn't consider them villains like I do the Endoraptor, but they do represent that sort of antagonistic dinosaur that the humans must go up against, especially in the original Jurassic Park. Towards the end, they are the main big bad that they've unleashed and have to compete with. So, and I think the design of those dinosaurs as well just lends into that. Just the teeth, the gums, the piercing eyes, and the just absolutely reptilian look to them that is terrifying. Godzilla. Yes, that's right. Godzilla from 1954, the original movie. This dinosaur, albeit not a real one, is absolutely terrifying. Whenever it's on screen, the way the characters talk about it, the way they're dealing with this insanely massive dinosaur that is just a force to be reckoned with, that seems to be unstoppable. It is just harrowing to watch, because it's got this sort of metaphorical ties to the Hiroshima and Nagasaki nuclear bombs that went off. There is this sort of real fear factor to this character, So whenever Godzilla is on screen, there is this sense of helplessness, that there is absolutely nothing you can do to stop this thing. And I think the look of the movie as well, like the really dark, moody, black and white look to it, gives this character a real presence whenever it's on screen. It's like take the Arredosaurus, which inspired Godzilla, and just turn everything up to the max. So I had to put Godzilla, the original one, on this list, because whenever I watch it, it puts you in a completely different mood. It's not a kind of mood of entertainment in a sense of like a horror film entertainment, like the Jurassic Park Velociraptors or the Endoraptor or something like that, where you're enjoying the kind of monstrousness of it. This, because it's got a real sense of ties to a horrendous real event in human history, it then puts this sort of air to the character that is really tangible in terms of its fear factor. An absolute masterpiece of a movie, which if you haven't seen, I highly recommend checking it out, especially the original Japanese version. Not with not Godzilla King of the Monsters that came out a couple of years later, but the actual original Japanese one, because they really know how to put you in the shoes of the characters who are dealing with this giant monster that's just come out of the ocean and is destroying everything. Oh, and what also makes Godzilla 1954 absolutely terrifying, in my opinion, which has ties to the number one of this list, but is its roar. The original Godzilla roar, which I believe was a leather glove being slapped and rubbed down a giant like cello or something, is absolutely blood-curdling. Whenever I hear that on screen, that might be the most terrifying roar of any dinosaur I've ever heard, and it's just... ugh. Just makes me feel on edge just thinking about it. So that's why Godzilla had to enter the list. And number one on the list, the Jurassic Park T-Rex. So when I came up with the idea to do this list, the very first dinosaur that jumped to my mind was the original Jurassic Park Tyrannosaur. It was the main road attack sequence that jumped into my head, and I was like, well, that's going to have to be number one, obviously, because it's the first one in there, the first one I can think of. And I would say that it's not necessarily the actual character of the dinosaur itself, because obviously later on we follow that specific dinosaur into other adventures. But in terms of the original movie, especially that main road attack sequence, the way Spielberg framed that dinosaur, the way there's a lack of music during its initial attack, the animatronic work by Stan Winston with these giant white teeth, the amazing computer generated imagery by ILM, all of that combined with the atmosphere of rain and thunder and children who are in desperate need of help, and the adults who seem like they can't do anything to help at the beginning, including one of them who gets eaten by this thing, and the build up to seeing the Tyrannosaur, because there was like a whole scene before where they went to the paddock and they couldn't see it anywhere, and there's this like anticipation to it. When it finally steps out of the paddock and just gives this triumphant roar, it's absolutely terrifying. And like I mentioned with Godzilla, how Godzilla's roar is my number one. The Tyrannosaurus Rex roar from Jurassic Park is iconic, but it's also terrifying when you think about what it's actually doing. When you watch the first movie, it seems to only really do that roar when it's like trying to be intimidating or searching for something, and because its vision's based on movement, there's this moment, and I think this is probably the scariest moment in the original Jurassic Park film, is when the T-Rex looks down through the window right at Lex. So like the T-Rex sees the torch, investigates, but can't really see what's moving because of the light and everything, so it does that hideous roar to basically force the characters to move, like make them jump. And I get this sense, and I might be wrong here, but I get this sense that that's what that dinosaur does to get prey to flee. Like if it's hunting and it knows small prey is around, it'll do that roar to make them jump and cause prey to run, or at least the humans. So then it knows that there's prey right there. And the way it's like just peering into the car, and like I said, the way Spielberg shoots it, it's just, you see it all from the human's perspective, and it's just absolutely terrifying. And it's obviously one of the most realistic dinosaurs ever put to screen, in terms of its like just looking like it's actually there with the actors performing with them. The T-Rex can be predictable, you know, you can stop and it won't see you, like Grant and Lex do, but that gives it that edge of fear even more, because like you have to be like a statue, and it's like it goes against all your inner nature to do that sort of thing in front of this sort of creature. So like you want to run basically, but to stand there and be a statue as this thing is right there, its teeth is right there, that's just such a terrifying idea. And that is why I consider the Jurassic Park Tyrannosaur to be number one on this list, because its design, you know, all, you know, it's CGI design, it's animatronic design, they have slight differences between them, but you can't really tell when you're watching the movie. You all believe it as one character. Its on-screen presence is second to none. It's just terrifying, and that scene is why it's one of the most iconic scenes in, you know, film history in terms of special effects. And whenever people talk about, you know, Jurassic Park being a scary movie, they talk about this scene and the kitchen scene from Jurassic Park. But because this one comes first in that in chronological order, I feel like that this is the most terrifying in that movie in terms of scenes, because it's the moment where everything is starting to go wrong. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what your top 10 most scariest dinosaurs ever put to film are, and we'll see when 65 comes out in a couple of months if that has any impact on this list. I probably won't do another video like this, but I'll do a video where I review the movie and I can briefly talk about whether the dinosaurs were scary or not, so we'll actually see how well it holds up. But yeah, anyway, remember to rate, comment, subscribe, watch Godzilla 1954, watch Valley of the Gwangi, watch The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, watch the Fantasia for the Rite of Spring, watch The Land Before Time, watch King Kong 2005, watch Jurassic World, watch Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, watch Jurassic World Dominion, watch Jurassic Park, watch me, subscribe to this channel. I've already said that.